The ending, oh, the ending. You know, I've sucked the time vortex up, doctor, help me, I've got a headache. And then the doctor's like, come here and give me a kiss. And oh my god, and then Jack Harkness is like, you know, and he does this whole thing, he's alive, you know, and that was like, wow, what's going to happen with Jack Harkness? Is he going to become the face of Bo? Well, we didn't know that because the face of Bo didn't even exist at this point in our lives. I wear a bandana now.
Bandanas are cool.
So as you can probably tell by the title of this video, I have chosen to start with 2005's Christopher Eccleston, the first series of Doctor Who that was brought back in the 21st century. Well, this Doctor, bless his heart, only had one season, which is kind of a shame actually. Okay, so episode 1, Rose. I can remember when Doctor Who came back on TV for the first time in my life since, well, 1996, because I remember the TV movie. So I've been a fan since I was like 2.5 years old, and suddenly Doctor Who was back on TV and I was like a teenager. And I thought, wow, this is it. Like, oh my god, my life is literally complete at this point. So, what did I think of Rose? First of all, it introduces us to the brand new Doctor, Christopher Eccleston, and of course, Billie Piper, who played Rose. So the story is based on us getting to know Rose and her family, and also introducing us to the first, or the 9th, depends on how you look at it, incarnation of the Doctor. Which, by the way, I think worked really, really well. Russell T Davies, who was the kind of creator of the series, decided to focus upon the more human aspects of life. So Rose's family, for example, you've got Mickey, Jackie, Rose. You kind of feel like you're part of the family, and then suddenly this alien appears with big floppy ears. That's obviously Christopher Eccleston. Now what I love about this story is that it successfully introduces us to the new incarnation of a Doctor. It introduces us to a whole range of ideas and what's to come. Also, it brings back one of the most iconic Doctor Who monsters of the show's history, and that's the Autons. Having only been seen way back in 1970s with John Pertwee, we see the Autons like they've never been before. And I was so hyped that not only is Doctor Who back on TV, but there's like a creature or a monster that I remember. I know this monster. So the Autons, as we all know, kind of control plastic, and it all gets a little bit crazy. And of course the Doctor and Rose, more Rose to be fair, saves the day. So a few things that I probably would say that I disliked about this story is just in my own personal head, it was so different from like Doctor Who in the 60s, 70s and 80s because of like life. Like things had changed, and it took a while for me to kind of understand that and almost treat the shows kind of as separate shows, only because the era in which they were produced was so vastly different. You could go back to the classic series and say that the 60s was so completely different to the 70s, and the 70s was so completely different to the 80s. So we all have that kind of moment when we think, oh my god, you know, Doctor Who has changed. And for me, that kind of was part of this whole series, because I'd never experienced watching Doctor Who in a weekly episode format, and it was kind of hard to get used to. Another thing that I kind of felt I didn't enjoy so much the first time around was the whole 45-minute episode aspect, no cliffhangers. That became obviously the norm for Doctor Who, and I still have kind of sometimes a problem with that today. But in this particular episode of Rose, I think we could have had a couple of cliffhangers there, and it would have made for quite an interesting, you know, dynamic to the story. Perhaps the story could have been split into 3 episodes, and they could be shown like on a Saturday, Sunday and a Monday, I don't know. Something like that, but hey, it obviously wasn't going to be like that. But my overall thoughts and feelings on Rose is actually, I really quite liked it, and it was a very strong episode to bring Doctor Who to the 21st century. Man, these videos are going to be super long. I need to speed up this process, I think. I'll get used to doing this once I've done a few of these videos, I hope. Okay, so the next story is The End of the World, and I'll be completely honest, I remember not enjoying this story very much. I thought it was a bit too much like Star Wars. There were aliens everywhere, and I was like, what on earth is this blue thing? And that bit of flat skin, which was Lady Cassandra, it was all a bit like too much for my teenage brain to kind of absorb. I was so used to listening to grunge music, and suddenly I've got all these bright images on the screen. I'm like, what am I going to do with all this information? The story itself was kind of cool, I guess. We've had the Doctor in present day, now we're having the Doctor in the far, far, far future. and I'd kind of guessed that the next episode was probably going to be the past. That's the whole point of time travel. So the things that I kind of enjoyed about this story were the fact that the Doctor and Rose had travelled so far in time. This made Rose really realise what she'd let herself in for. Some of the characters, I must admit, as weird as they looked, did look pretty cool, and in retrospect, going back to graphics, are on point. Considering it's 2005, thoroughly impressed. I feel like, again, this one would have definitely benefited with a few cliffhangers. Now, forgive me, it's been a very long time since I've seen this story. The Forest of Treem or something like that. That lady, I cannot remember her name. The one that kind of melts at the end. She was fantastic, and she could easily have been a companion. Maybe instead of Adam, who we'll get to in just a bit. Now, things that I didn't like about this story, like I said, there were kind of too many aliens, too many colours. I know it's a really weak complaint. I was just bamboozled by all this, and it was really quite distracting for me. And on the whole, I just found this story to be a little bit of a drag. It's not one of the best stories in my personal opinion. Moving on to the third episode, which is the Unquiet Dead. Now, here's a story to get your teeth into. I absolutely adored this story. Of course, it introduces us to the lovely Gwen Cooper, or so be it a family relative of Gwen Cooper, who we later find out is in Torchwood, of course, and further episodes of Doctor Who. The Unquiet Dead is set in one of my favourite kind of eras of kind of not so distant history of Earth, I guess you could say. Charles Dickens was just an absolute joy. The guy they got to act as Charles Dickens was on point, absolutely fantastic. They could bring him back any day and I'll be all well happy with that. One thing I didn't like about this story, I guess, would just be a tiny nitpick, and that is I don't generally like ghost stories. I think ghosts are pretty lame in my opinion. Like, I don't know, like the whole ghost thing just doesn't do it for me. Although in this story, to be fair, the Gelf were pretty awesome. So it's very difficult to kind of complain about something that you actually really enjoy. So yeah, that story was kind of on point. At this point, I would say this was probably the second best story. So we've had Rose, and then The Unquiet Dead, and of course below that would be The End of the World, which we just reviewed. Now moving on to episodes 4 and 5, we've got Aliens of London and World War III. Now these stories were, how do I put it, rather strange, because it introduced us to this Levine, which was a character that kind of grew on me in time. I thought the whole idea was fascinating. I just didn't like the gas jokes, like literally, come on, we're not 5 years old, although some of us probably were 5 years old. You know, maybe one like fart joke would have been funny, but this isn't South Park. Like, don't get me wrong, I love South Park by the way, but this is Doctor Who. I want a bit of seriousness in it, just a bit. And having all these people kind of just go around like literally dropping their guts was a bit like, I don't know if this is like a bit embarrassing for me to show anyone. Anyone that I know watching this is going to be like, that's what he watches? Wow. But that being said, it introduced us to our first two-parter, which meant that we had a cliffhanger, and the cliffhanger actually was really, really good. Now with this story, like I say, it introduces us to a new monster for Slitheen, which we don't actually get to see that much in the new series. I'm not sure why the Slitheen haven't come back in a more scarier way. We do come back to the Slitheen later on in this video, and apart from perhaps the Sarah Jane adventures, we don't really see the Slitheen ever again. So I guess that's a bit of a shame if you're a Slitheen. But anyway, that being said, things that I enjoyed about this story was the idea of like London in particular, because I don't live too far from there, being invaded by aliens. It's something that I always dreamt of as a kid. Of course, with stories like the Daleks' invasion of Earth, you see London getting kind of invaded by these Daleks, which was incredible, even though it was black and white and very, very kind of different. The graphics in this one, especially when that ship with the pig crashes into Big Ben, that was absolutely sick. Like literally, I enjoyed that. I remember thinking that scene was it. That was what got me hooked back on Doctor Who. Like, yeah, Big Ben has been crushed. It's weird what things stick in your head, especially as a teenager, right? So, as a whole, a good two-parter, and it got more kind of silly towards like the second part of the story, and some of the aspects were a little bit wishy-washy. But that being said, I enjoyed it and would rate it kind of, you know, in the middle somewhere. If I was going to rate all two-parters, it would be in the middle somewhere. So let's get on to episode 6. Now, episode 6 is called Dalek. Need I say more? This story is fantastic. It introduces us to the very first Dalek of the 21st century, and quite possibly the best, the most evil Dalek we've ever seen. Like literally that scene when it electrocutes everybody with just like one shot of its gun, like wow, that Dalek was on it. It was amazing. I love everything about the story. The fact that you get to see a Cyberman, a classic Cyberman head at the beginning, that really got me excited for the Cybermen, which unfortunately we never actually got to see. And of course, just seeing that Dalek, oh, it was amazing. A few gripes that I have with the story is I always wish the Dalek's hemispheres were blue, and maybe the Dalek was silver and blue. In the same kind of way it's been built, it would have looked really nice, but I get it, the bronze is still a very cool colour. The fact that the Dalek can rotate, it can fly, it can do everything. That scene when the Daleks like elevate, oh wow, like literally my brain elevated into the sky. I was just like, oh, this is going to be amazing. So Dalek is up there as one of the best of the new series, 100% without a doubt. You may disagree with that, but that's my humble opinion. I really do enjoy that story. Now, things that I didn't like about the story, there's only one Dalek, and I know that's what makes this story so strong, but I was just gagging for more Daleks, but that was obviously to come in a few episodes' time. Spoiler alert, in case you haven't seen it, but of course you've seen it. That's why you're watching these videos, to get my opinions on what you enjoyed watching. Is there anything else that I don't like about that story? To be honest with you, no. I absolutely love it. So Dalek, fantastic story. And you know what? Episode 6 was kind of halfway, sort of, and oh my god, we've had so many stories already. So let's jump into episode number 7. Wow, it is super hot wearing a bandana. I'm clearly not a gangster. I'm sweating, and in this room it's normally freezing cold. Whew! Right, anyway, moving on to episode 7. It's called The Longest Game, I think. Let me just double check my iPhone. Hang on. Okay, so moving on to The Longest Game, which is episode 7. This introduces us to the amazing character of Adam. The guy with the thing in his head. No, I didn't like him at all. Just put that out there. Adric was way better, and I actually like Adric, so no dissing Adric, people. Come on, he was a good companion. Anyway, so The Longest Game introduces us to Satellite 5, and a lot of the story again kind of reminded me of Star Wars. By the way, just for kind of recognition, I actually like Star Wars, but I like Star Wars being Star Wars and Doctor Who being Star Trek, or whatever now. So but I just kind of feel like Doctor Who has to be Doctor Who. And again, it was a little bit Star Trek-y with me, and not that that's a bad Star Trek-y, Star Wars-y, not that that was a bad thing, but it kind of just took a while for me to get used to. Things that I did like about it though, the dynamic between Rose and the Doctor by now was on point. They were like as if they'd always been together, and it was really nice to kind of see them gelling together. You can tell that I don't remember much about the story because I can't think of much to say about it, but what else? Oh, the whole graphic thing with that, I mean, that was quite good, but looking back it looks really backdated now. You know, and you click your fingers and then suddenly, I don't know, it was a good idea at the time, I think, and maybe on pen and paper it looked even better, I'm not sure. But that being said, it was an okay story. I can't diss it too much because I probably need to go and watch it again before I give a proper analysis on it. But yeah, like I say, yeah, that's all I have to say. Okay, episode number 8, Father's Day. Wow. This story was very emotional, and I actually think it's probably one of the, if not the most emotional Doctor Who stories of its time. I mean, it's something that we've all thought about, going back in time to see loved ones that we sadly don't have anymore. And it really, really impacted on me, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And it's one of those stories from this series that I'll go back and watch over and over again. It's a standalone story and it just works. It's great seeing the Doctor and Rose, and in another version of Doctor and Rose, it's kind of like, forgive me, this story, I think it's the Day of the Daleks when you see the third Doctor and Joe Grant meeting each other. Just brilliant. And of course I was going to say Krilla team, but it isn't, is it? It's the Reapers. The Reapers are sick, and they definitely need to come back. They're like, to me, a classic villain. They were amazingly well thought of and visually superb. So what did I not like about the story? It's a shame that it's all kind of a bit based under siege, like we're trapped in a church and that's it. But I guess that was the whole point of the story, so I can't really niggle on that too much. The actor, don't know his name, I'm terrible with actors' names, but Pete Tyler, oh, brilliant, brilliant acting. And I was so glad that Pete Tyler was going to be a recurring character throughout Doctor Who, because yeah, Pete Tyler, he's a good lad. I like him. Anyway, so that story's fantastic. Can't really think of what else to say about it, so let's move on. Okay, so episodes 9 and 10 are a two-parter. The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances. I don't know why I said it in that way, but anyway, so this was fantastically amazing. Now, I believe it's Stephen Moffat that wrote this story, and hey, Stephen Moffat, good job, dude. Like, literally, this story still holds up as being one of the best two-parters in the whole of Doctor Who. Like, the introduction to Jack Harkness, by the way, Torchwood, Jack Harkness gets 10 out of 10 for me. There are a whole bunch of videos later on, I hope. I love Torchwood. Anyway, going back to the stories in question, everything about it works. I love World War II for a start. I think the era needs to be remembered. Of course, it's kind of a distant memory now, but, you know, our grandfathers, or great-grandfathers at least, fought in that war, and you know, we've met our great-grandfathers, some of us, and, you know, we've seen it, we've been there, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it's just so raw and real, so I love that. The whole idea of, are you my mummy, is actually really, really creepy. It's really simple, but it is so damn effective, and if you showed that episode for the first time today, it would be just as damn good. It's awesome. Another incredible thing about this story is the ending, spoiler alert, is a happy ending. Everyone lives, and I think that's quite nice to see occasionally in Doctor Who. Obviously if it was all the time then it would be ruined, but yeah, it's nice to see everyone live, especially Dr. Constantine, who, like, oh, what a cool actor he is. He's in so many things, but like the graphics as well, like seeing the gas mask zombies kind of fall into themselves is so creepy. I believe the BBC were like, can we show this at tea time? And they were like, yeah, fuck it, of course we can. Why not? And they did, and it was amazing. I'm glad they did. It should be an 18. It's like really, really scary. What did I not like about the stories? I guess they could have been a three-parter, maybe have some more of it, because it was so awesome. Of course, it is Captain Jack's first kind of role in Doctor Who, and I guess he hasn't quite got into his character yet, but it is still quite nice kind of watching the development of Jack Harkness, the Time Agent. I guess as well, the story is quite dark in ways of lighting, and of course this makes it more atmospheric. I would have liked to have seen more of like the Blitz perhaps, but you know, I guess the budget restraints and whatnot were kind of in place at this point because we're nearing the end of the series. But that being said, a fantastic two-parter, and it is up there. Like, the bar has been raised and raised again with these two stories. Superb. Okay, so we now move on to an episode called Boomtown, which reintroduces us to the Slovene, and I forget her name, but the lady that was in the first two stories is also in this story, and she's a really, really interesting actor. Now, I remember this story being, in my opinion, a bit of a weird one, a bit of an in-between one, because it was like, we knew the finale was coming up in the next 2 weeks, and it's like, is this episode really a bit of a filler episode? Like, I kind of undenied about it, but having watched it again recently, I really enjoyed it, and that bit with the Doctor and Slovene in like the cafe, fantastic, and it kind of shows the Ninth Doctor getting really intense. Don't fuck with this Doctor. Lots of planets have a north, and this Doctor literally will kick your ass, and I think that's pretty awesome. So Boomtown is definitely an interesting watch. Not one of my favourites by any means, but it's still definitely worth checking out if you've never seen it. But of course, anyone watching this video that hasn't seen all these episodes I'm talking about, I don't believe that they exist, because we've all seen it by now. But if you haven't, then go check it out. It was also interesting watching the formation of the Rift in Cardiff, and it was all kind of beginning to come, you know, into place, and obviously set Torchwood up as Torchwood. So yeah, Boomtown, pretty good, I'd say. Like I say, what I didn't like about it was it just kind of felt like a bit of a filler episode. Everyone was chomping at the bit for the next 2 weeks, the finale, which by now we knew that Eccleston was going to be regenerating into David Tennant, what I forgot there, and yeah, it was like, what's going to happen? How is it going to happen? And are we going to see any more Daleks? And the question was answered with a big, fat yes. Okay, so Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways, another fantastic two-parter. I've seen these stories like a lot of times because as a teenager I really enjoyed it and decided to just kind of keep watching it over and over again, like I did with all my classic Dalek stories because I'm a bit of a Dalek nerd. So this reintroduces us to the Daleks en masse. Seeing those Daleks flying out of the Dalek saucers was just a boyhood dream. I literally could have like just watched that and been like, you know what, life is good, life is complete now, I'm happy. That sounds really sad, doesn't it? I have a life, I promise, but, or do I? I don't know. Let's just get back to the video in hand. So, what did I think of the stories? It was great that we now had the Doctor, Rose and Jack and many more characters kind of being introduced. The whole Big Brother thing was actually really clever. I used to watch Big Brother way back in the day when it was on Channel 4. I used to fancy to be number cool. That's a whole other video. But it was really fun to see. And I don't know what the weakest link with the android. That was one of the cleverest puns I've ever seen on Doctor Who. And probably on modern television. It was all really kind of inventive. And even watching Jack Harkness on What Not to Wear, is it? Something like that. Never watched that programme, clearly, but that was even quite a fun, if not strange, thing to witness on Doctor Who. But of course, the thing that I loved about this story, again, was it was a two-parter. We had a cliffhanger. And, oh, that cliffhanger was good. It was a Dalek saying, "We have Rose, what are you going to do?" And the Doctor was like, "Rose, I'm going to get you." And that's not what he sounds like at all, but I can't do voice impressions very well, so I can barely imitate my own voice, let alone anybody else's. So, yeah, it had everything. So if I'm going to critique these stories, I would have to say that the Dalek hemisphere should have been blue. I don't really have anything negative to say about this story. If I'm honest, I do have something very negative to say about wearing a bandana. It keeps coming loose because of my big mouth and nose keeps whacking it off my face, so I have to keep tying it round the back of my neck. So, negative things about this story, I don't think there are any negative things. I can critique it by saying it should have been 10 episodes long perhaps. I don't know, make the whole series about this one episode. That'd be cool. And the character that was exterminated through the glass, oh, I can't remember her name, but she was in EastEnders. She became Tanya, I believe. I used to watch EastEnders, I know. Yeah, don't hurt me. Not anymore. But apart from my film that she was on because he's a legend, bruv. Anyway, yeah, that was an epic part of the story. And of course, the ending. Oh, the ending. You know, I've sucked the time vortex up, Doctor, help me, I've got a headache. And then the Doctor's like, come here and give me a kiss. And oh my God. And then Jack Harkness is like, you know, and he does this whole thing, he's alive, you know. And that was like, wow, what's going to happen with Jack Harkness? Is he going to become the face of Bow? Well, we didn't know that because the face of Bow didn't even exist at this point in our lives. And again, the bandana keeps coming off. Yeah, so the ending was amazing. And of course, the very final scene, Eccleston says fantastic a few times, which basically sums up this whole series. It was fantastic. Well done, Christopher Eccleston, Russell T Davies and Billy Piper. And then he regenerates for the first time on our screens in a 21st century way, when it's like and boom, there's all gold stardust going everywhere, and I was like, what's going on? And then suddenly this man from Broadchurch, which hasn't even been aired yet and even discovered, who is this man? I don't know who he is. I've never seen Casanova. I have no idea who this man is, but Barcelona. Right, okay. This is going to be a good Doctor, I think. Fingers crossed, and spoiler alert, it was a bloody good Doctor. So there we have it. That is Series 1 of Doctor Who from the Revived series reviewed. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you found it fun to watch. I hope you engaged with it, and leave me some comments on the Facebook post that this video is going to be attached to, because the YouTube comments have gone and it's so upsetting. Sorry about that, just had a little bit of a cry. Yeah, let me know what you thought about this video. If you enjoyed it, then maybe you can suggest what series I should do next. And I'm talking about 1963 all the way to 2020, so it could be anything. I will try my best. And I'll also try my best to find a way to get this bandana to stay on my face so I don't have to keep editing the video to stop me having to do that all the time. And I'll do my best to get these videos out as much as possible over this isolation period that we're having. And I'll be honest with you, it's doing my nuts in. I still go to work because I'm a key worker and it's becoming a little bit stressful. I don't know, I just want the world to go back to normal. I want people to be safe, and I'm going to end the video here. So thanks for watching. Don't forget, I wear a bandana now, and bandanas are cool. Alright, you'll know it from me first. Take care guys, and I will see you all very soon in another video of me reviewing Doctor Who, of course. Bye for now.